Hey guys, Mike here with our first episode of Sights to See, the show where we teach you how to travel light, go far, and get the most for your money. On this episode, we'll be traveling to Oaxaca, Mexico, home to the largest Day of the Dead festival in the country. Every year, thousands of people will gather in this small town on the week of October 31st to reunite with the spirits of family past. We were lucky enough to be able to attend last year's ceremony down in Oaxaca and put together this little film to show you how. Tim? Flying into Mexico City, we landed a few days before the 31st to give ourselves enough time to make the journey down to Oaxaca. After getting off the plane and making our way through customs, we hopped on the subway over to the bus station. Be prepared, the bathrooms at the bus station are 6 pesos per use, so save your change. We grabbed a bite to eat and headed to one of our first stops of the day, TEOTIHUACAN, 8 square miles of stonework that in its prime housed around 80 to 90% of the total population of the valley to see its main attraction, the Pyramid of the Sun. The temple complex was designated as a World Heritage Site in 1987 and consists of over 2,000 housing buildings and 4 main pyramids: the Pyramid of the Moon, the Pyramid of the Sun, the Citadel, and the Temple of Quetzalcoatl. Taking in the vastness of a space like this, imagining the people at work, at play, taking in the sights themselves made me feel a part of something ongoing, a continuous line of humanity stretching beyond us into the future. But I was snapped back to reality when out of nowhere, disaster struck.
Gonna need a little explanation of what we just did here, Lauren. I owed that.
We got on a bus to get to the pyramids.
And then what happened?
I left my phone on the bus. Then we chased the wrong bus.
And then what did we do?
And then we chased the wrong bus. And then we spent an hour in Otumba.
Who was running up and down the streets like a crazy person chasing buses and banging on doors?
Okay, I don't want this memorialized.
But what happened?
We found the phone. Well,
Right.
They say we found the phone. We'll find out at 5:30 or 6.
2 hours later.
My phone just decided to take a little tour of Mexico without me. And so I let him have his fun. And he came back to me. It cost me a little bit of extra money.
A little bit.
But that's okay because it was cheaper than the mental anguish.
Yeah.
And getting another phone.
With that crisis averted, some food was in order. Luckily, there are no shortage of amazing diners in Mexico City. One delicious rainy street meal later, we went back to the city proper to take in some nightlife with some friends who were also traveling through Mexico. We enjoyed some espresso, coffee, and great company together before deciding to get back to the night. The statuary, the architecture, the artwork, lights, colors, sounds, flavors, it's hard not to fall in love with the big city life. We said goodbye to our friends and continued wandering the streets, stopping to appreciate the graffiti art all around us. But that was not why we were here. Hopping an overnight bus and getting a few Z's along the 8-hour trip, we made it down the country to Oaxaca, our real destination. Thankfully, our friends at Gorilla Glass allowed us to borrow one of their vehicles. Shout out to them. And that made getting around the city a lot easier. We landed at ABASTOS Market, one of the largest in the city. On sale were no end of colorful scarves, sugar skulls, and other wares, mostly made by hand. I didn't buy anything, but the temptation was there. We stepped into an art installation to look around a bit and appreciate the work on display, just one of the many such places around Oaxaca. Then we headed back out onto the street to check out the local artisans, and were blown away by how many paintings, carvings, sculptures, weavings, everything in between were ready and available for purchase. It was the most impressive thing we had seen so far that day. Until... Whoa. Oh, I almost forgot. During our trip, we were told about Santa Maria del Tule. There, we would find the Toiletry, the most rotund tree on the entire planet. This Montezuma cypress stands at around 120 feet tall, over 140 feet around, and is nearly 2,000 years old.
Hola, chica.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Then it was time to party. During the Day of the Dead festival, hundreds of artists around town paint face after face after face throughout the night. Seeing as this was our first, we thought we should dress for the occasion. Once we were properly made up, we made our way to our first party.
How was your taxi ride?
Crimped.
I say first party, but I'm not really sure where one ended and the next began. We met up with friends early on, and from there, the night was a blur of fireworks over a concert stage, which then became dancing in the streets. The costume marches with full brass bands would roll through, and we were swept away until it was interrupted by more fireworks. The crowd would die down, and we would move on to a different part of the city. Having a group of amazing friends who were locals really helped us navigate through the festivities. It didn't feel like there was any rhyme or reason to how the crowd flowed. We just followed along, enjoying the evening as each new exciting experience came our way. The mezcal definitely helped. Inevitably, we would end up in the middle of another parade with even more insane props and costumes than the last, and the cycle would begin all over again. Having worked up a healthy appetite and needing to settle our stomachs, we made for the nearest taqueria. The rest of the night was spent laughing and remembering, stuffing our pretty faces, and saying our goodbyes as we parted ways for the evening.
Hey! Hey!
Day 2 had more parades all the way to sundown. Just outside where we ate, we noticed a few people gathering at first. Then more. And before long, the entire street was packed to party once again. And this was just on one city block. There were people from everywhere, all gathered in to take in the festival. Around the corner, we found a local vendor selling seasoned chapulines. Crickets are a rare treat in the States, so I jumped at the opportunity to try some in Oaxaca. They are considered a specialty, and not surprisingly,
Yeah, really fucking good, actually.
the sun went down soon after, and the festivities began once more. Marching down the roads, even at a slow crawl, can get exhausting on your feet, so make sure you wear comfortable shoes. This is not an occasion for high heels or new boots. By the end, we had hiked around the city, following the crowd as it weaved its way through the streets for around 2 miles each night. We continued to walk well into the evening, celebrating and sampling the local mezcal the whole way. The next day, we had the opportunity to sit down with the owner of Gorilla Glass, Jason Fole, to tour his facility and learn all about his company and its operations. You should check out the interview with him here on our channel, as well as Gorilla Glass's website, links in the description below. Sadly, the time came when we had to leave Oaxaca. We had just enough time before our flight to check out the Museum of Natural Anthropology, which I highly recommend you do if you get the chance. There was so much history in this place, ranging from hand carvings and threadwork to murals and remains thousands of years old. There are almost 24 displays of Mesoamerican indigenous heritage in this museum, and we saw them all. Well, almost all of them. Of course, the one exhibit we wanted to see, the Inca exhibit, was closed. So, to cheer ourselves up, we visited the stonework and began to make our way out. But before we go, a few last thoughts on our trip. Most of our trip was made much easier by having a vehicle to get around once we arrived in Oaxaca. But the buses we used were all found through a service called ClickBus and had costs ranging from $5 for the ones to Teotihuacan to $50 for the round-trip bus from Mexico City to Oaxaca. Our meals were also relatively cheap, ringing in at around $3 to $15, depending on how fancy you want to get. Admissions to each museum was around $4 per person, as were Teotihuacan and Monte ALBAN.
Hey, Lauren, what are you eating?
Bugs
In a tortilla?
and tortilla. What are they called again? I forgot. I just ordered them. They're fucking good.
And that was our trip. Pleased with all we had accomplished, we boarded our plane back home, dreaming about all the fun times we just had. Nights I'll struggle to remember, but will never forget. Should you find yourself with an opportunity to spend Day of the Dead in Oaxaca, Mexico, we highly recommend going. If you have any stories or want to share your own experiences there, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Another huge thank you to Jason Fole and Gorilla Glass for all their hospitality on this trip. as well as the other friends we met along the way. Please hit that subscribe button so you can keep up to date on all our travels, or you can reach out to us over on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You'll find those links in the description as well. Thank you all so much for watching our little tour of Oaxaca and Mexico. We'll see you back here soon for more fun and adventure. Bye!